Namaste guys. Hello and welcome to another episode of City Talk. I think it's the fifth one in the series, and we are here to talk about the investment and its importance in the economy. So, recently, India has presented its budget, and the main focus was given to the capital expenditure. And we have also seen that Uttar Pradesh has organized Global Investor Summit in the Feb month, which got a massive proposal of around 33 lakh crore rupees, which is roughly 1.5 times its own GDP, that is gross state domestic product. So we are here to talk about the investment and its importance in the economy, something which is not being discussed in the mainstream media. And actually, it's my dream that such discussions should not remain confined only to the intellectual world and reach masses. And to talk on the subject, talk on the topic, we have today a very special guest with us, Ms Bhawna, a research scholar from JNU. She has expertise in the field of economics, international relations, defense and security, diplomacy and disarmament division, nuclear diplomacy, which is impressive in itself. So I was told that she has guided so many people in the for the PhD program in JNU, and I was also told, obviously by her, that she has already published several articles on international relation topics, on which we will talk about in a different video altogether. But today she is with us to talk about the economy in general and importance of investments in the economy in particular. So this topic is very important for UPSC and other exams where economy as a subject is asked, obviously. And I can assure you that the questions which I have prepared have certain themes that can be asked in this year's mains exam. So before we start, I would ask Bhavna ma'am to give a short and brief introduction about her, just to verify that whatever I have said are true information. Yeah, over to you, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say thank you, Pawan, for providing me this opportunity and this platform. And I'm really glad that I will be able to share my knowledge that I've gained over a period of time. And I'm really hopeful that this session on Indian economy is going to be beneficial for all our UPSC aspirants. So, without any further ado, let's just start with the session.
Yeah, thank you so much and welcome again. So, starting on the topic of investment, so if you just ask the term, what is an investment? If you can explain in a very crude or let's say in a layman term, not in a technical word, so that the people who don't know, don't have any idea about the investment at all, can get the idea what is investment. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So, let me explain this term investment in the crudest manner possible. Um, Basically, in a layman language, I would say that investment is nothing but a thought process or mindset of an individual. Okay, that let's say if I will place a value on something today, then I will be able to get a more value in future,
Mm,
right? So, and it
mm,
could be in both monetary and non-monetary terms. For instance, people in terms of monetary context, people invest in so many financial instruments. Let's say shares, debentures, government securities, and in fact, gold. One of the classic example in Indian case is gold.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
in context of non-monetary terms, then it could be anything, your valuable time or your effort that you are putting in today to achieve your goal in future. For example, if you are preparing for UPSC today, then you will be able to become an IAS officer tomorrow in future. So this is the simplest manner in which I can explain investment. And because we are talking about Indian economic perspective, so I would definitely explain investment from economic point of view as well. So investment is nothing but it is the purchase of goods that are not consumed today but are going to use in future to create wealth or generate wealth. That's the definition of investment in economics.
Okay, okay. So moving on, like preparing for UPSC, I have encountered the uh, different methods to calculate GDP. And one of the very important method to calculate GDP was expenditure method. So if we break down the expenditure method to calculate the GDP, the private final consumption expenditure comes around at around 60%, and investment have roughly around 30% weightage. So my question is why we focus more on investment-led growth rather than consumption-led growth, as the consumption part has more uh, what we can say contribution to the GDP of India. So why is it so?
Okay, so before answering this question in detail, I would like to explain what is GDP exactly. So GDP is nothing but it stands for gross domestic product. It is the market value of all the goods and services produced in an economy in a given period of time. Now, there are two ways to look at the GDP. First is it is considered as the total income produced in the economy, and it can be also viewed as the total expenditure, on the output that the economy produces, right? So because GDP measures both your total income and total expenditure, so it can be used as a measure of economic performance, right? So in India, of course, the GDP is calculated with two different methods. One is the factor cost, which includes, I mean, the economic activities, which includes the factor cost, and the other one that you have spoke about, the expenditure method, that includes the market price. So the factor cost approach or method basically assesses the performance of 8 different industries. On the other hand, the expenditure method indicates how different areas of the economy or sectors are performing, such as trade, investment, and personal consumption. Now, the expenditure method offers a more clearer and comprehensive picture of the economic performance as compared to the income or the economic activity method, right? So you spoke about that. I think 60%,
Yeah.
60%. Yeah, the private final consumption expenditure was around 60% of the GDP, and investment is 30%. So so your question is that why do we focus more on investment-led growth model instead of private consumption-led growth model? So I would say that the right question should be that is the consumption-led growth bad or good for the Indian economy in the long run?
Yeah.
Okay. So to answer this question, let's not forget about the rapid, constantly rising population growth in this context, right? So far, in my views, I think the rapid population growth has played a consequential role for the Indian economy. And to be precise, India is able to reap the benefit of its demography in terms of demographic dividend. So the logic is quite simple here. Higher the share of population growth, higher will be the private consumption expenditure, and which leads to increase in output and hence the high number in GDP, right? So clearly, this constant increase in population growth is responsible for consumption-led growth, which is working in favor of India till now pretty well. But I think in this constantly rising scenario, which is so dynamic in nature, I think we need to shift our focus from consumption-led growth model towards more on investment-led growth model, because in the long run it seems more sustainable and reliable option, I would say. So in the long run, this investment-led growth model would help the country to generate wealth, and it also opens up new opportunities and new avenues for the masses. For example, it can create new job market or upliftment of the poor section of the society, etc. So investment-led growth model would definitely create a sense of economic security among the masses, right? For instance, this private consumption model does not allow to create wealth in future, right? Which the investment-led growth model will do so, allow us to do so, right? In fact, the future generation will also take the advantage of the growth, not the present generation itself. So I would say, I think, given the current situation, I would definitely, in my views, I would definitely say that there has to be a shift now from consumption-led growth model towards the investment-led growth model.
Yeah. Very, very conclusive answer. Thank you. So when we talk about growth, I have encountered a term, ICOR, increment capital output ratio. So I have somewhere read that India has a ICOR of around 4.6, more than 4.5, whereas USA has a ICOR of less than 1, roughly 0.5 or zero point 0.6, something around. So I just want to know that how it affects the growth rate. What is ICOR, first of all, and how it affects the growth rate in the economy?
Sure. So when we talk about something about growth, so we are talking about something in numbers. Basically, something is increasing or decreasing in numbers. Okay. So ICOR is basically nothing but it stands for incremental capital output ratio, which basically explains the relationship between the level of investment in the economy and the consequent increase in GDP, right? Basically, it shows how much additional unit or additional capital is required to push the overall output by a percent, right?
Mm,
For
mm,
instance, I would give you an example. It would be more clear to you then. If the additional capital requirement is 15% to push the overall output of the economy by a percent, then in this case, the ICOR ratio will be 15. Okay,
okay.
so lower the IOCR ratio, the better it is, because it reflects how efficiently a country or a economy is using its capital for producing that extra output. So as you have mentioned that India has a comparatively higher IOCR than the US, so I would suggest the safe range should be between 1 to 3%, and not above 3, because if it would be like 5 or 4, then it would be like a concern for the economy. So India is working towards that direction to reduce its IOCR and to deploy that capital more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, we have also heard that government is running several flagship programs like National Infrastructure Pipeline, PM Gati Shakti Yojana, and recently in last year, I think they have launched National Logistic Policy. So that aims to that lower down the ICOR only. So how these programs can effectively not only increase the investment in the economy, but can also increase the impact of investment as well, because you have talked about the that ICOR means the not only the investment but impact of investment, how much growth it is creating.
Sure, sure. So, so Indian government has been investing in several infrastructure projects over a period of time, which is clearly visible to us in every domain possible, in every sector possible, just to push through the economic growth in the country. I would say that mm, that so basically you have mentioned few flagship schemes already. National infrastructural pipeline, which basically aims at building a world class infrastructure across the country with the intention to improve the overall quality of the life of the people. The emphasis of this NIP would be on ease of living standards, or safe drinking water, or access to clean and affordable energy, world class modern railway stations, airports, etc. Right, and then you have also spoke about the national logistic policy, which also aims at lowering the cost of logistics from its current 14% of the GDP to less than 10% of the GDP by 2022. So this policy will certainly make Indian goods more competitive in the global market, and will also promote economic growth and expand the job market as well. So according to the statistics, I think during the fiscal 2020 to 2025, sectors such as energy, roads, urban projects, railways, they amounted to around 70% of the projected capital expenditure in the infrastructure in India, as per the economic survey. I mean, these figures that I've taken. And you have also spoke about the PM Gati Yojana, which is simply a national master plan for multimodal connectivity, project, which aims of coordinated planning and execution of infrastructure projects to bring down the logistic costs. So basically, and there are other several schemes also there in place. But the main focal point of all these flagship schemes and programs is to build a sound infrastructure that would eventually contribute to the higher economic growth of the Indian economy. Certainly, these kind of investment projects required huge amount of capital to invest in. So definitely it is going to increase the effective level of investment in the economy. But on the other hand, it will also increase the overall impact of investment, in the sense that uh, in terms of expanding job opportunities, raising the standards of living, access to affordable goods and services, healthcare facilities, education, etc. So the impact of investing in these infrastructure projects would be so huge and long lasting, and it would also benefit not just the present generation, but it also cater the needs of the future generation, right? So in my view, we absolutely need to invest in all these infrastructural projects, because a sound infrastructure acts as a driving force that is needed to swift economic growth in an economy or in any country for that matter.
Yes, I was about to ask about the recently concluded Global Investor Summit of Uttar Pradesh, which got the investment proposal of around rupees 33 lakh crore. So it is basically the
Hmm.
importance of investment. You have already explained it very well. So I would like to skip that question. Coming to the next
No,
question.
I will like to answer that question with a quote. Please ask.
Uh, yeah, yeah. I was just about to ask that the summit was termed by many opposition leader as waste of money, quote unquote, waste of money.
Yes.
So I would just like to know your views on that.
Yeah. So I would simply, because it's not a purely economic question, but it also involves the political dimensions, and
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
want to get into that debate. But I would definitely like to answer this question by a simple quote, and this is one of my favorite quote in economics by one of the famous economists, Thomas Sowell. He said that the first lesson of economics is the scarcity of resources, which means that there is never enough of anything to fully satisfy all those who want it. And the first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. So I think this this quote clearly answers your question.
Definitely, definitely. It's about the
Yeah.
viewers to decide you have answered the question very well or not. Very diplomatic answer it is, I would say. So coming to the
Okay, fine.
next question. So last year, before the Ukraine war, on 24th of Feb, it has completed a year. So last year, just before the starting of the war, we have seen that Russia was not a traditional oil supplier to India, but
Yes.
recently it has, uh, by overshadowing all the oil suppliers of India, it has become the largest supplier. So we all know that this happens because the Russian oil is not getting out in the market due to the sanctions put by West. So they are not permanent, as we know that some day or other day these sanctions will be revoked definitely, and India will not be able to get such cheap oil from Russia. So it is getting now. So it has again to shift to costly purchases. Definitely it has to shift to costly purchases. So how it will affect India's economy at large? I just want to know that.
Yeah. Okay. So let me start with the answering the question. So firstly, oil is considered as one of the important component or commodity for any economy to function smoothly, right? Because it is consumed by every industry in any country for that matter, not in just in case of India. And it is used in their for their economic activities, day to day economic activities. Hence oil has a great influence on the economic growth of any country. But unfortunately, India is not blessed with this natural resource, as it has to import crude oil from global market in order to cater its own requirement, right? So, and any geopolitical event, as you have mentioned, the recent one, let's take the example of Russian-Ukraine war, that has impacted the oil supply globally, and due to which the prices of oil has increased drastically in the global market, which eventually led to economic slowdown in various economies that we have seen already in news, right? Even though the oil price remains more or less the same, but due to some unforeseen circumstances or events, the price of oil can witness fluctuations occasionally, right?
Mm.
For example, during COVID pandemic, the price of US crude oil, it has dropped down below $0 a
Yeah.
barrel, right, which is a record low,
Mm.
and due to surplus supply in the market and a significant drop in demand, right? And this is just one example that I've quoted here. So these fluctuations in oil prices globally will absolutely affect the functioning of the Indian economy to great extent, I would say. In order to avoid any kind of external interruption, okay, which has the capacity to impact the oil supply, India should create a strategic oil reserve that can be used later during emergency situation, right? So in order to avoid any oil shocks in the global market. for instance, India right now, because you have mentioned the Russian example, right now India can buy uh, a good amount of oil, crude oil from Russia at cheaper and affordable prices, and it can save that oil for later usage, right? So when the prices would be volatile, of course, India needs to set up some sort of storage or a warehouse facility to store that extra amount of oil. And here comes the logistic part, that we have
Yeah.
a lot of schemes coming up. That is why the infrastructure
Mm.
development, right? So this strategic oil reserve will help us in two fronts, right? First, India will get a cheap oil for its, for its reserves, and second, it will also resolve the problem of storage for our refiners. That's the main point, right? So India's strategic oil storage are currently located at Vishakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. One is in Mangaluru, and one is in Pendur, Karnataka. So I would say that India can use these reserves in during the situation of economic crisis, and can benefit from this.
So yeah, it means India is already investing in such strategic petroleum reserves. So
Yes,
India just need to expand that investment in
yes,
the, yeah, definitely. So yeah, coming to another very important geopolitical event that not so geopolitical, but India has promised a net zero by 2070, as we all know, and Indian Railways have
particularly.
particularly committed to do it by 2030 only, very fast as so. It will have, of course, it will have a major share of electric vehicles and green energy project. So we all know that in India, particularly in India, uh, there are various project private companies like Tata's and Adani's. They are two powerhouses when it comes to green energy in India. So recently, two things happened. You all must be knowing that one is discovery of lithium in Jammu and Kashmir, which has created a havoc around the world, as it might affect the geopolitical event in case that South America may lose its geopolitical significance. And another was the Hindenburg report, which led to the fall of Adani shares. So how do you view that these two things can shape the Indian economy at large, and particularly the India's promise to uh, net zero by 2017? Where do you see that happening around 2070, or we will achieve it much earlier, or that will go to a later stage?
Okay. So, this Hindenburg report and the discovery of lithium in J&K are two different events that happened recently, and everyone knows about it. I'm not going to get into details of these two
Mhm.
events, but I would rather, talk about their impact on Indian economy at large, right? So first, I would like to start with the lithium reserve discovery. So in my view, of course, it's a great news for Indian economy, because lithium is considered as one of the precious natural mineral, and has been used in multiple things. In fact, sometimes it is also referred to as white gold
Yeah.
due to its high demand for rechargeable batteries. Right. So this lithium discovery could definitely boost the green energy in India for sure, because it is an important component of electrochemical cells that is used in batteries of EVs, electric vehicles, laptops, mobiles, etc. And it is also used in thermonuclear reactions. So far, I think if we look at the like the okay, so Chile, Australia, and Argentina are so far the top countries with lithium reserves. But after this discovery, it makes India also one of the largest reserve holder in the world. Currently, China controls 75% of the world's lithium refining, and India's lithium comes from mostly from Hong Kong, China, and US. Right. So lithium is necessary for India to boost its energy transition plans. In fact, the center is also expected to invite bids for the newly discovered lithium reserves by June. It's there in the
Mhm.
news recently. So in my view, this discovery can prove to be a game changer for India and for its economic growth, definitely. And apart from this, in case of Hindenburg report, I think it's the impact of this event is not that great, I would say. This is for just for a very short period of time, right? So And you have also mentioned that Adanis and Tatas are the powerhouse of the India. So I don't think so that it's going to impact much on that front. But yes, it has some impact, and I think Indian economy has that capability and capacity to absorb that short-term impact of this event. So yeah, so I don't think so that in this case it will change the position of Tatas and Adanis as to powerhouses when it comes to greenhouse energy in India. So yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that Adani will end up like Meta, as they have no physical assets uh, as compared to the Adani. Adani have the physical asset in the form of ports
Yes,
and various
exactly.
various solar parks as well. So yeah, they can absorb the
Yeah. So
yeah
basically, Adani has made huge investment in infrastructural
yeah.
projects. That's the key. That's the point.
Okay, so
So it's not just an
infrastructure.
impact.
Coming to infrastructure that you have talked, so there is a rise in unemployment in India, and central government especially have decided to give a push to its capital expenditure. We have seen around 10 lakh crore rupees or some odd figures have been allotted in this year's budget. So they are giving a major push to capex to increase the employment and infrastructure in India. So how do you think that this is going to influence the state of economy and employment in India, given that it will create jobs obviously it will create jobs, but not that so-called white collar jobs that we see. So how it will
Yeah.
influence uh, the especially youth in the country?
Yeah. Okay. So in my views, currently unemployment is one of the greatest challenge in front of the ruling government with the constantly rising population. The government should come up with some effective employment generation schemes so that it can provide incentives to private players to expand the job market as well. Lately, the government has introduced CAPEX, which stands for capital expenditure, which means I mean these are the funds that are used by the company to acquire, upgrade, or maintain physical assets such as anything like plant, building, or any equipment or technology, etc. So in my view, capex is going to influence the state of economy and employment rate positively. Capex can tell you how much a company invests in existing and new fixed assets to maintain or grow its business. Capex is any type of expense that a company shows on its balance sheet as an investment and not as an expenditure in its income statement. That's a difference. There's a difference, right? So this capex-led growth strategy will enable India to keep the growth interest rate differential positive, leading to a sustainable government debt to GDP in the medium run. This statement is, I'm directly quoting this statement from the economic survey, the recent economic survey. So I think it's going to impact the employment rate or state of economy of India in a positive direction.
Definitely, we can hope so. So, coming
Yes.
to another term that we encounter in the economics, that cyclic and counter-cyclic policies. So we know that cyclic means to go with the flow, that is, expend more at the boom and save during recession. Whereas counter-cyclic means to expend more during recession to boost growth. Yeah, that is fine because when the economy is in recession, we should government should invest more and expend more to boost the growth and overall demand in the economy. But it mentioned that we should save during boom. That means we should expend less during the boom. So I just confused why it is so, because at the time of boom we have money, so we can expend more to uh, further we can say magnified that boom in the economy. So why a certain economist advises to follow counter cyclic policy in which they advises to save during the boom period?
Okay. So before answering this question, I would like to explain the business cycle model. I mean, we all know that it's a wavy kind of graph or
Yeah,
structure.
some
So first,
sign or
first
cause wave.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. First, yes, yes. So first, the economy starts expanding its business activity, then it reaches at the peak level, and then it starts slowing down, right? And this cycle continues. So, as you have mentioned that in case of cyclic or pro-cyclic fiscal policy, the government reinforces the business cycle by being expansionary during good times and contractionary during recession, right? And at times, a cyclic fiscal policy could be dangerous because it can also leads to macroeconomic, instability, and also hamper the real and human capital and hence economic growth. But in case of counter cyclic policy, which is very much in the, I wouldn't say in the news, but I have read this term in the economic survey itself by the chief economic advisor. I think he introduced this policy. So the government go against the direction of the business or economic cycle in this case, right? So during slowdown or recession, the government should increase expenditure and reduce taxes to create a demand that can drive an economic boom. On the other hand, during a boom in the economy, counter-cyclic fiscal policy should aim at raising taxes and cutting public expenditure to control inflation and government debt. So an expansion in government, because I mean there are two benefits of this. Why the economists prefer to opt for counter-cyclic, policy, because an expansion in government expenditure during recession cushions the contraction in output by offsetting the decline in consumption and investment. First, second, higher government spending builds confidence in tough time, and through this policy the government is able to show their commitment to sound fiscal management. So I think that's the reason why the government is adopting this in during recession.
Okay, okay. So now coming to the very, I think, modest sector of the Indian economy, that is agriculture sector. So we know that still India have half of its workforce engaged in agriculture and allied sector, but their contribution to the GDP is less than 20%. And many times we have seen certain type of unemployment, like this guy's unemployment that exists in this sector. That is the marginal output is zero. So my question is, what government can do to ensure that dependability on agriculture reduces in the country, and at the same time it doesn't affect the overall output of the sector, because we have seen that it was the only sector that grows during the pandemic and had saved Indian economy at which is
Large.
much needed thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what
Okay.
government can do?
So I would say that India is considered as an agrarian country, and despite the fact that it's considered an agrarian country, more than half of its population depends on agriculture for livelihood. Yet it contributes less than 20% in the GDP as compared to the other two sectors, the tertiary and the manufacturing service sector. Sorry, the government can reduce. See, in my view, if you ask me, I won't suggest that the government should reduce the dependability on agriculture entirely, but I think government should come up with some sort of initiatives in agriculture to supplement the farmers income, right? So of course we have a lot of already existing schemes in place. For example, we have a PM Kisan scheme, we have agricultural infrastructure fund, we have PM Fasal Bima Yojana, we have National Agriculture Market, and of course the MSP, minimum support price, that the government uses. The government can support farmers income through aligned sector, animal husbandry, fishery, dairying, etc. So I don't think so that the government should entirely reduce the dependability on agriculture, but it should come up with some other innovative schemes or incentives to supplement the farm income of the farmer. One sector that I would like to focus on is the food processing sector, which is also termed as the sunrise sector. It is there in the economic survey as well. It has the enormous significance for India's development because of the strong connection and interaction that it promotes between industry and agriculture. So this sector has the potential. The government needs to tap that potential to take the advantage of the sector, right? I think also the performance of the agriculture sector remains critical to growth. So the government cannot entirely reduce the dependency on agriculture, right? And employment of the country as well. So I would say that investment in the agricultural sector must be encouraged through an affordable, timely, and inclusive approach to credit delivery. Because the credit delivery system is one of the major concern when it comes to agricultural sector, and that is the main reason why the so many farmers commit suicide over if you look at the statistics over a period of time, like past years.
Yeah, so we have certain time constraint. So I would like to address all other question in a separate part itself because we have time left less than 5 minutes. So I have to end this video here, and we will continue this talk in a separate video. So that will be part 2 of this video. So stay tuned for that part also. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.